Are y'all good with the consent?
You're on.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the June 17th, 1:30 p.m. City Council meeting. At this time, we will stand and have the pledge and prayer.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father God, we just come to you, Father, first of all, thanking you, Father, and praising you, Father, for what you do for each and every one of us, Father. And thank you for what you're doing in this city, Father. And we just come before you, Father, and just pray for protection over our city, Father, as we go forward, Father. And Father, we just ask that you just calm, just bring in your character, Father. Just bring calm, peace across the nation, Father, and across the world, Father. And I just thank you for all that you do, Father. I thank you for giving us the ability, Father, to discern what is right in your name, Father, and just be with us as we make decisions, Father. And just thank you for all that takes care of the city, Father. We're just so blessed with the employees and staff that we have, Father. We're just tremendously blessed, and we're just very appreciative, Father, that you've brought them to us. And I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And at this time, if there's any questions or comments from citizens, and I see none, so we'll move forward to the city manager's monthly report.
So kind of start, you've got your financial charts there. We're still trending pretty good on everything. You'll notice in the general fund that our expenditures are still under budget, a little over the 5-year average, but remember we expect that because we've added EMS service and some other expenses that we haven't had, for that 5-year average. Also, as normal, next month you'll see the big jump. We have started getting our industrial district payments in, which turns that revenue to where revenue is more than expenditures. We always get a big increase in the first of the year with property tax coming in, then that stops until we get our payments in June for the industrial district contracts. So actually, we're still on target. So if you look at everything, we're doing pretty good right where we're supposed to be in the general fund. Same thing's true on the water sewer fund. You'll notice that we've been maintaining a higher revenue than expenditure. Now in June, you're going to see that kind of creep up and change because we have our debt payment for all of that debt that comes out in June. And so you can see those in the dashed lines that we take a big jump toward the end of the year, and that's what that is for. Sales tax is still trending a little bit below where we were last year, but in line with our budget. So we're doing pretty good there. We do expect that to increase a little bit toward the end of the year as we do have that bigger project starting at Nutrient, and we start getting a few more people in town. But we're still tracking pretty good on that. You'll notice the draft preliminary budget that you've seen has got our projections in there. And so right now we're projecting the general fund to end a little bit under $1 million to the good, and the water sewer fund to end about $700,000 better than what we had budgeted. So overall, we're tracking well. You'll see on hotel occupancy tax, we're trying to trend higher than our budget numbers as we've started to see some increased activity with the summer months. So that's looking pretty good too, which is good for the venue fund and all of our other activities. A couple of projects updates. So the swimming pool, they did actually get the heaters turned on yesterday. So they got the new valve put in. So we're now completely pretty much 100% operational. I will say last week after the temperature picked up, the heaters weren't necessarily a problem. Right now out there, I just stopped by on my way back in. The water temperature is 88 right now with no heaters. So they had set the heaters at 85, so we were talking about that. I think we're going to kick them down a little bit, go ahead and let the pool cool down a little bit at night as we get into these big 100 plus day temperatures. But that seems to be going pretty well. We've been pretty busy. I've been pretty pleased with how everything's operating out there. It's got a lot more space. Seems like everybody's enjoying it. It's definitely, we've gone through one bucket of chlorine so far in the 3 weeks we've been open, to where the old pool, we would have already gone through probably 6. So a little bit more on the acid side of some of that stuff, but that was tied to the rain. You know, we did get a big rain and actually had to drain some of the water from the pool, which kind of, you know, skewed it a little bit, but we did get 4.5 inches in less than a week. So overall, it's doing pretty well there. Of course, City Hall, as you came in, you can see we're still making pretty good progress here. I know that most of the staff is really appreciative now that it's gotten to be 100 degrees, that the air conditioner is working quite well, and we've got good control over that, and it's functioning pretty well. What's left of the old plumbing's been holding together, so we've been keeping the bathroom situation a little bit better. Bathrooms downstairs, the fixtures are going in right now. All the flooring's been complete downstairs. Ceiling and lights are in. Cabinets, countertops went in today, so before you leave, if you want to look around downstairs, it's changed quite a bit. Another week or so, they'll move up to the back bathrooms up here, and that'll be the final phase. So we should be done with what we're doing here in about another 4 weeks. Of course, all of our other projects, we're still just waiting. We're still waiting on TCQ to approve our water permit for the well 13 replacement well. We have submitted our permit application for the new well too. That takes a longer process than the replacement well. We are still waiting on the screw pumps, you know, which are, the screws are being custom manufactured, so we won't be able to start that project at the wastewater plant until we get the screw pumps in. But they are in, but that's going to be probably let me rephrase that. They are working on them. The order is in, but it'll be probably next year, next budget year before we get that project started, but it shouldn't take too long once it goes. Other big project, Jason and I went up to Milwaukee to do the final inspection of the mobile command vehicle. That'll be here Friday. So we'll have that all set up at the next council meeting so that y'all can go through it and look at it. It's even nicer than I thought it would be. I mean, that thing's built to last. And with the aluminum framing and all that, I mean, I know from the outside it kind of looks like an RV, but that's the only thing it shares in common with an RV. While we were there, they had a unit come in for refurbishment that was about 20 years old, and it still looked, well, other than a few things like, you know, the scene lighting, you know, you could tell it was kind of 20 years old, but wasn't that bad. And the big camera on the back, you know, fancy PTZ cameras 20 years ago looked a lot different. But other than that, paint was still in good shape. The structure was still good. I was impressed. This is definitely going to be a 30-year truck and built to last. So we'll point out some more of those little features and let you look at it when we see it. But I've been joking that I know that it's set up well because after we went through all of that and saw all our capabilities and did all the inspection on our truck, they took us on a tour of the facility. And, you know, we saw a lot of other bigger trucks, and I'm not going to say fancier because I'm just going to say bigger. And after going through and touring, I mean, seeing what they do really makes you understand how well built and how these are not RVs and they're definitely built to last. But in going through all of those, I wasn't really jealous of anything. So the only thing different really was space. And I'm not for sure that it's worth the one. LA was building one when we were there. It was 10 feet longer than ours and $1.9 million instead of 800,000. And like I said, the only real difference was space, bigger conference table and things. So our capabilities, I think, are going to be really good. We test a lot of stuff. There's a way to do just about anything. You know, it does have the satellite network. So like I said, if we need to do mobile payments for utility billing or set up a replacement city hall, if God forbid it gets knocked down with tornadoes, it can do all of that. The accessible bathroom's really nice. So I think y'all will be impressed when it gets here next week. So that project is almost done as well. You will notice that our contractor was back in town to do the warranty work down Main Street from last year's chip seal. So that's an onyx kind of coating project or product. We talked a little bit about that before. This is not what we're doing on the rest of the streets, but it has sealed in and will keep the rock. It turned out pretty good. I don't know that I'd use that as a standalone product for anything else, but it definitely makes the road look better and will hold everything in place.
They're gonna do the striping?
Yeah. We're probably going to hold off and do the striping for when we do all of it, because we are set for the rest of our seal coat project to be later at the end of July.
Okay.
And then we'll be doing the microsurfacing on top of that. So that's Wilson Street is getting chip sealed and then microsurfaced. Roosevelt Street is getting, from Cedar to West Wilson, is getting micro sealed in addition to residential streets. So we got a lot of striping that's going to have to be done. Like I said, seal coating is planned to start January 25th. I will note also that TxDOT has a project down Cedar that's about to start probably July.
Hit me freaking too.
Yeah. No, you can't do it when it's cold. In July, so that's coming up, and the TxDOT is going to resurface the southbound lanes of Cedar from somewhere north of 3rd to the Cloverleaf. They're planning on June 26th for that. You will not be able to turn south onto Cedar from 3rd Street while they're working. Traffic will be restored at the end of each day, but while you're working, you're not going to be able to turn south from 3rd Street. They've been communicating to us. We'll put out that information as best we can as it comes. It's still kind of a floating date, but they'll give us as much notice as I can. So I did want everybody to be ready for that. Of course, I'm kind of excited for that because it needs to happen. Those lanes are... So, and this will be, they'll have their milling machine, and then they'll overlay it like they did on the one lane on the north side a couple of years ago. That's what they're going to do on the south side. So that's coming. I think that's pretty much the projects we have going right now. So we go through our departments, of course. HR's been busy with getting all of our summer hands on, so we do pretty much have them all on. Of course, lifeguards and park rec aides are on, and we've added summer park maintenance employees. Code enforcement maintenance is out there working, and so is our summer interns. So they'll have presentations for you during our August meeting to talk about what our interns learned during their summer with the city. So we're always excited about that. We're also starting to do some demos with some new benefit management software, which will change how we enroll employees and their benefit packages. And we've had some issues when we switched benefits 2 years ago to United Health. We kind of got a cheap entry-level one because we needed something quick and something easy to set up. Over time, it's kind of created some issues with the way we don't get two-way communication when it sends a file out. So sometimes it's cancel people's insurance, or it's resend out a file when we didn't want it to resend a file. So we've been having some problems with that. You know, we're a little bigger than that, so we're looking at some new software there to kind of fix that problem. And Michelle's
same company.
We'll keep the same. Right now, our plan is to keep the same benefit providers, but we'll have a different benefit management software that communicates with those providers. So, like we've talked about right now, we're budgeting for a 10% increase in health benefits. Depending on how that goes and what our claims actually come in, we could get a little under that. The brokers advising us they think they can get it, hopefully negotiate down to maybe 7 or 8%. So we'll see how that goes. But what's in the budget is the 10% just for the worst case scenario. So as we refine that later in July, we might be able to make some of those changes. Of course, code enforcement is busy. If you look at some of your stats in your monthly report, you can see the number of active cases and weed cases is really going up. Both code enforcement and parks and streets, and everybody just keep in mind that the rain, we got a lot of rain in a very short amount of time, which really created a bunch of issues. And so you have 4 guys mowing 28 parks. You're now adding 2 seasonal employees, so that takes it to 6. But like my yard, I've almost had to mow twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
And so if you mow every park twice a week, that's 60 parks that have to be mowed with 6 guys. So that's 10 parks a day. So that's, not happening. So I just asked, now this is getting hotter and rain slowing down, the growth should slow down a little bit and we can catch back up. But I mean, people should be expected us to be a little bit behind. Same is true for the code enforcement guys, just as it grows taller and thicker, it also takes longer to mow. You notice code enforcement has been out on the 136 right away this week. So it's definitely looking pretty good, but it takes, that takes 1 whole week pretty much just to mow that one right away.
Does the park, they take care of new sidewalks that's got weeds growing up in that now too, or?
We're going to try to spray them. That's going to be code enforcement, but we're trying to get time to spray in the interim. And so we talked about that where, the rains, we talked about that last year, that when the sidewalks came in, that the state is not going to maintain that. So if we want it maintained, we're going to have to do it. And so we're trying to find a good and quick, easy way to spray it. hazard mitigation's also out in the urban interface, working on mitigating and mowing some. Today they were working on the big hills out on the 136 right away, following up behind that. But, you know, we're doing the best we can, and that's keeping all the code enforcement busy. And I know that people are getting letters. And I would just remind everybody that, you know, that's been a pretty big feedback from the community that they wanted a little more code enforcement. And now with 2 code enforcement people working and letters going out through our newer automated software, we're finally getting a lot better at doing that. And so, you know, it starts with a pretty nice one, just reminding you that you need to mow. And then, you know, kind of gets up. But, you know, we are wanting to keep, there's a lot of reasons to keep up with that. And I will just remind everybody, don't forget, we do have the yard kits that if you need a mower or weed eater, we can help you with. We've seen that going way up. You know, there are people in here every week, you know, asking for the use of that. So that is good. And of course, solid waste has, you know, bulk help refuse programs and stuff like that. So it is definitely partnership, and we are working through that. In OEM, TDM hosted some training here last month. Of course, like I said, we talked a little bit about the command vehicle, and y'all noticed the sheets when you came in, but we are getting ready to move over to VOCI for our notification software from the D4H. So that's a collaboration tool, and it does also help us log some financial information and things like that for reimbursement when we do have grants and TIFMAS responses. So we're working through that. But mainly it's to make sure that we have everybody that needs to be notified in specific groups so that when something happens, we can put it in there and the notification is automated. So it's up to Whistler and everybody else to really we're trying to put the onus back on the other agencies, you know, making sure that they keep their contact information up to date. You know, we don't have the people to sit there and call every single agency and industry in the entire community every month to make sure that their contact is correct in the system. So we have been going through and trying to get everybody in on that. And so far it's going.
When will that take over?
July 1st. So that's the D4H subscription ends the end of this month, and that'll take over. And so they've been working with the bigger users, and so that we should have pretty much everybody pretty much going. We did confirm during that severe weather we did have an EF0 tornado in town. Kind of went over there by Boyd Street, over by DJ's well service. So one of the police officers actually caught it on video. I say caught it on video. There was actually no funnel to view. It was just kind of some wind and some debris being stirred up, but it wasn't even radar indicated. So the only reason we actually got that tornado warning issued was because of our report and on the ground view. So it definitely needed to be. I mean, that could have very easily turned into something else or something worse. So we appreciate everybody being out there, being mindful and applying it and providing information back on that. We do have some grants moving forward. In your weekly update, I did mention that the state has selected our fire detection camera system as a primary project, submitted it to FEMA. So the state's the main recipient. So really, that just means that FEMA's going to do some basic review to make sure that the state did all of their review. But the only reason it would get turned down now is because it wasn't an authorized project, or didn't meet the criteria of the grant, which it's gone through 8 steps through TDM, so I'm pretty sure that it's going to comply. So I'm not too concerned about that. So that will be, should be getting funded in the next 18 months. So we'll work through that and get that worked into the grant as well. We are also working on finalizing our reimbursement for the Double S fire. There is a hazard mitigation grant program tied to that, which we're updating and going to put in for some generators for the wastewater infrastructure as part of that hazard mitigation grant, if we can get that. The 3rd Street drainage is still on a different hazard mitigation grant tied to another program that is still under state review, still at step 6 of 8. So we've at least made it most of the way. We'll see if we can get the rest of the way. Pender they also supported the health and safety fair. So we had 44 booths and about 172 people attend. Look at maybe rescheduling that next year. But there are a lot of stuff going on that Friday, and so be a little more mindful of when that gets scheduled. And he's also working on putting together a first responders wellness course to over a couple of periods to get some information and some wellness resources out to the first responders. Dispatch, we are working through a couple of openings. Got most of those staffed and filled. There's one more that she left for personally. It wasn't tied to us. She just for family reasons, had to leave, and so that's the one last vacancy. IT is working on the new camera system that was part of this year's budget, replacing our non-compliant cameras throughout the city and city buildings. So they're going to be starting to work on that. And then, of course, we have mostly completed our cybersecurity training, as the councils know, after y'all got to sit through that wonderful, enthralling video that we all got to watch. From the fire department, Mr. Gibbs, Mr. Gilman completed their industrial fire training that was sponsored by Phillips 66 on our behalf. So they send them up there, take care of all that cost, and put them through the industrial fire, which is always a good way of, building those relationships and sharing some skill. Big difference between, municipal firefighting and industrial firefighting. We try to share that back and forth. We share the municipal side with their fire responders, and they share the industrial side with our fire responders. They were also at the Tractor Supply for their Touch a Truck event. The fire department did get all the dispatchers certified in CPR last month as well. And of course, if you've seen some of the pictures, they were quite busy going around all the schools for their end of year little fun days, and they sprayed and made a lot of little kids wet over the course of last month, which I know everybody always enjoys that. And Chief Hall and Jeff Stieg, the EMS coordinator, completed the PIO course that we hosted last month with TDM. And then, of course, Wildland has been busy trying to mitigate now that some of the growth is happening. Of course, right now everything's pretty wet, but if we don't get it mitigated while it's wet, it dries out and turns into a big problem. In Public Works, of course, they've been busy helping support all the events that have been going on. They've helped set up barricades for the First Baptist Church Vacation Bible School, Beach Bash, and then the second Saturday. So I appreciate all of them taking out from their other busy duties to help those city events and respond to one of those core strategic pillars. They did help coordinate the Main Street warranty work that has now been done. They are working with the TxDOT on the Cedar Street project that is coming. You're going to start seeing us also get ready for the seal coating projects as we keep crack sealing and get those ready. We also got the concrete contractor working, so we fixed a drainage issue there behind the Nut House, which I know a lot of people thought that was tied to the 10th Street project. It wasn't really. The gas company, or was it the gas company or utility? Somebody went and dug up the alley. And when they dug up the alley, they put a big crown in it and changed the drainage path of the alley. So we've got that fixed. And then we also have been making some improvements to Agnes Howe. We got some new ramps put in, some more concrete approaches replaced. We're replacing lights in the bathrooms and doing some upgrades out there with the summer season. In Police Department and Animal Control, we did finally get our second box for our second new response truck in, so that's back in service. And so we're not back in service, in service. And then they've been working on planning some new events as well to increase chipping in some of the vaccinations that they're working through. And then our new cat cages have come in. So I don't know if I sent you all a picture of that. I'll send you a picture of that. That's definitely much improved. In the police department, of course, our new recruit got sworn in and is now on the FTO program, so he's working through that. Our other recruit has started the next police academy, so that one's on track to end sometime in August. Of course, they were out at Beach Bash and the Health and Safety Fair, and then Captain Sims attended the TDM conference with Whistler. Whistler and Archie actually spoke and taught a session at the TDM conference on mitigation and some of that stuff, so I heard pretty good feedback on that, so it was good to be sharing some of our knowledge with that. And then also in coordination with our state and federal partners as part of our relationship with them, we did an anti-crime task force in town, and they executed a couple of search warrants and reminded some of the criminal element that when you work in Borger, you're also working with state and federal agencies and not just the local police department. So hopefully that got some stuff spread around. With Nicole's Main Street and all of our stuff down there, we're finishing our quarterly data analysis. We're looking for applying to the Main Street program officially in July again. So they seem to think we're looking pretty good. And so we hopefully expect to be, a Main Street program, an official Main Street, not First Street, but an official Main Street program in the next application cycle later this year. She also went to some another one of the mandatory trainings as she continues to get ideas and meet other people from everywhere else. Of course, we did support the Beach Bash and the Elks Lodge Flag Day as part of the second Saturday, and they've also been going around hitting up sponsors for all of our events in the upcoming Boomtoberfest. public engagement, we completed our Gateway neighborhood cleanup that collected 5,900 pounds of bulk and other unnecessary waste, so that's the biggest amount so far. We've started the Throwback Thursday post to kind of help get the other pictures and other information, getting ready for our centennial, so that has been doing pretty well. I know that some of you have been seeing some good pictures and stuff there. I even found some, when I was going through some of my grandmother's stuff, I found apparently she was the president of the Borger Newcomers Club in 1978 and kept the little program and directory from the 1978 Borger Newcomers Club. And pretty funny square dancing club member directory and information sheet too. So that it had the if you want to laugh, they're in there are the 10 Commandments of the square dancer, which is pretty good. We got the dumpster art going, so we've got those applications in and getting ready to set that up to start painting. They've also started working with the airport and working on better ways to market the airport. If you recall, that was one of the things that came out of the comp plan, was to better market the Hutchinson County Airport as a gateway and economic benefit to Borger. We've joined the Travel Alliance also to help get us some more information out there. And we have officially become tourism friendly through the governor's office. That press release will be sent out shortly. Actually, we were one of the fastest cities ever to meet all their criteria to do that. So good work with Deidre on that. Also reapplied again for the T-Mobile grant, hoping to get a little bit of money for the bird sanctuary replacement, Zen pollinator, whatever we're going to do out there. I'm working on ideas with that. They've gotten a significant amount of entries already for the Oktoberfest Battle of the Bands, so they're working through deciding how that's going to be working. They've also sent out some feelers for a Main Street investor type, trying to get interest in people trying to invest and expand in Main Street. Deidre's also been asked to speak at the PREMAC conference. That's the PRPC's Emergency Management Conference in September on engaging the public in the importance of social media during emergencies. So that could be pretty good. And then she's also doing a session on branding at the Women's Conference. And then between she and I think we submitted 5 or 6 applications for the Texas Municipal Excellence Award again this year. So we'll see if we can't go 3 years in a row and get you another little fancy tag when you're down there.
Mm-hmm. And now Nicole's speaking at the Women's Conference.
She didn't put that in her update, so.
Oh. Sorry.
I only know what they tell me when they tell me. So. But that's where we're at for the last month. If you have any questions, I'll entertain those. I will say that going forward, item number 6 I put on by mistake. They had asked to be on the next meeting. Okay. And in my rush, being gone partially next week, I put that on here, but that'll carry over to the July meeting.
All right. If there's nothing else, then we'll move on to the consent agenda, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And if there's any questions on any of those or any comments, and if not, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve consent items 7 through 11.
Second.
And all in favor? And it passes. And item 12, consider and take appropriate action on resolution R-09-25 supporting the City of Borger's application to the Texas Department of Transportation's 2023 Transportation Alternative Set Aside called for projects. Mr. Stroke.
So this is our second attempt at getting this grant. We submitted during the 2023 cycle. It is not uncommon to not get a grant your first time through many granting agencies. The only one in the Panhandle in our region that actually did get one was Amarillo, and it tied into a state highway. So what ours is it's the Bulldog Loop that we've talked about doing for several years. It'll go down Bulldog. It'll tie in Johnson Youth Center, the Dome, Stadium. It'll go up St. John's Road, along between the Dome, the Legion, and then it'll tie that into the newly laid sidewalk from TxDOT. So, like I said, if we're deemed or worthy or what have you from the state and we're awarded, it's fully funded. There will be no money, long term out of pocket. So it's a fully covered grant. The state covers all but a portion of the federal funds. We do qualify for a portion of federal.
Does that become a state highway, or is this a city-owned thing? Or?
Yeah, so this will stay the city. You know, it's property that we already own. It's land that we've had deeded to the city for decades, and so really all we're going to do is improve those roadways that, you know, we already have going down along those areas, tying in the parks. Of course, they'll be ADA accessible with ramps. Again, just really improving accessibility down there. I know we've all seen that sometimes cars can get a little quick, so having a place where pedestrians can walk and or ride their bikes will be nice if it's.
The goal of the transportation alternative is, they call it transportation alternative because it's trying to get people out of their car and use alternative transportation. And so part of the scoring criteria is, are you connecting, you know, community and school and parks and other things like that? So regionally, the regional tax office always gives us positive feedback for this because we're a lot farther along with the Parks Trails master plan that we did a couple of years ago, and we hit a lot of those because connecting up to Cedar, that gives you a straight path from the high school down the new sidewalk all the way to the football field or all the stuff back there. The youth center's there, the dome's there, the nature trail's there. So we got a lot of things that we can add up. The problem is that this is scored and awarded statewide. So they don't allocate set amounts to certain regions. And like I said, last year, the Amarillo project got awarded because it tied into I-40, which, of course, the minute you tie into an interstate, you get a lot of points. So,
Is that why you tied into 136 twice?
well, you get points for tying into a state facility. So if you connect state facilities, and last time I tried to point that out, that this would tie into the soon-to-be state's the sidewalks that the state are doing. And so you do get bonus points for tying into those. So,
And the nice thing with that is, since it's complete, you know, the map that we submitted this time does have the sidewalks completed and shows, you know, the tie-ins where those will be once that's.
You know, to me, it's more looking at a safety issue too, because, you know, I go that way a lot. And you have a lot of kids walking on both sides of that Bulldog Boulevard, coming back from the youth center and from the stadium. Sometimes they walk from the stadium up to Cedar, but you have a lot of foot traffic. I've seen more foot traffic than I have bicycles, but that might change. But you have a lot of kids walking that close to traffic. Okay.
which is why the trails kind of identified this as one of our trail projects in the master trails plan.
It is just shy of $5 million. So, you know, I mean, again, it's not a cheap project by any means that we throw together. So, I mean, having this funded would be fantastic to provide those safety features out of, you know.
Yeah, because it's unlikely that we'd ever be able to fund a $5 million sidewalk project all on our own just for an area outside of that.
With this being a reimbursement, will it be done in phases? I mean, how will that work?
It'll be like every other grant. We'll be responsible for paying the contractors up front, and then we submit draw requests just like we do every other grant.
Okay, so I mean,
we're not going to have to outlay the full $5 million.
Okay.
And then
I don't think I've seen a reimbursement before, but maybe I have. I didn't notice that.
well, this is it is a little different coming from
Yeah.
TxDOT. So, but it'll work. This is most of it is federal pass-through money.
So it'll be done in stages where we will not be upfronting $5 million.
Yeah, we're not going to get a $5 million check from them at the end after we spent $5 million.
Okay.
Each month we'll pay contractors, and then each month we put draw requests in on the grant to reimburse that. So normally the way that works is if it was a 25%, and we might I'm not 100% sure on the nuts and bolts of the secondary federal funding, since we get those credits. I don't know if we'll have to submit those. We'll get that when and if we get awarded. We will have to upfront on a project this scale. I would expect monthly draws to be somewhere around $200,000 or $300,000, depending on progress. And then
I guess it depends on when it's actually.
this would likely be a 2028 project.
So this will actually be put in a budget. I mean, is it on our 5-year? Is it on our plan or anything? Because
it was, but then it was not because we didn't get the grant.
okay,
And so I've not put it back in there.
but it will be budgeted for, and it'll be budgeted.
It'll be budgeted in Fund
Not
52,
that
which is
$5
the,
million, because
Well-
that would take a debt.
it'll be budgeted for $5 million, but you'll have a revenue of $5 million coming in too.
Okay,
So, because we pay for it, they pay us. So we pay monthly, we pay the contractor monthly, then we send in the request to get reimbursed, then they pay us back. So pretty much what reimbursement means is they're not gonna upfront us any money. They'll pay as you go, but we have to pay first.
How do you handle cost overruns?
This will be bid out. So if the bid does not come in favorably, you don't award the bid.
And there is also a specific section in here for contingency costs. I think on this project, it's a little over $100,000. I mean, even the OPC, the opinion of probable cost, covers that, and the state does allow that there to have some room. And in fact, some of that, we did have to modify this project a little bit from the first time because prices have gone up so much. We had to trim, a loop that we were going to have because it's gone up a couple $1 million over the last 2 years of what the additional would have.
So you're expecting a lump sum bid for 100,000 or in that area, less than the grant will be given to you?
Well, I don't know what I expect the lump sum bid to come in. When it comes in, then we'll know, and that'll be up to the council's decision. If it is an overrun, is it worth an extra $100,000 of city money to get it done? Maybe. Is it worth an extra $1 million of city money to get it done? Maybe not. So, but it will be a lump sum guaranteed price contract. So if we're awarded the grant, then we'll start design and engineering on it, and that is part of the grant money too. And then we'll put it out for bid, and if it doesn't come in, then we will have to modify the scope to meet the grant funding.
In addition to the contingency, they also have built-in inflation. Knowing that this project won't be let for probably 2 years, in fiscal budget, they factored in a pretty good chunk of money there for the inflation and the rising cost of equipment.
Okay, so you did a cost estimate, then you have whoever did the estimate. I say you, it's the city or whoever you hired, right?
Well,
Okay.
Park Hill,
So you did an estimate, you added the contingency, you added for inflation and escalation and everything else like that. And so then you'll go out for bids. When it comes in, you'll evaluate what the bids are, see if it was worth it. If you use the contingency or you have to use the escalation part of it, the grant still carries that. The lump sum isn't eating that. Is that a true statement?
right.
Okay.
So the grant will only pay up to what the awarded grant amount is, regardless of when it happens. So if they award $5 million, then that's what they will pay. It'll be our decision if the bid, if all the cost comes in higher than that, do we want to make up the difference? But we will get to make that decision. We're not going to be locked in. It's not like we're going to be locked in and end up being another $1 million out because the escalation didn't factor that. So we'll get to make that decision.
And as far as those two items, like I said, the formula, the state has that built into the application. That's not something you can finagle. It's not something you can, so basically whatever your project cost is, they've got their, 1 times contingency percentage, and then 1 times 4% times assumed years. I mean, it's all built into their application that we as applicants can't modify. So again, they've done whatever formulas that they have found, for a statewide, I would assume probably a middle ground, and then plug that into the application.
Okay, so like when you come up with the initial cost estimate, you give that to the state, and then the state adds the contingency and the escalation and everything to it.
I mean,
When
they
do
come
the
up with a
grant.
formula, yes.
It's part of the grant application. So they have specific line items that we do. So the engineer determined the linear feet of sidewalk and curb, and then the engineering firm, they keep data of actual projects that have been awarded and that they've done, so to get an actual market value of what they think it'll be. And luckily, I think our estimates are pretty good on this because, sidewalk's something that there are a lot of projects all the time that do sidewalks. And so that number is pretty good. The one time in my tenure now with almost 5 years as the city manager, the one project where the OPC was way off was our 3rd Street drainage project. But there weren't a lot of projects for headwater walls and putting in new culvert and old berms that might have cars in them. And so there was a lot of uncertainty, and so that one came in so much higher that we ended up not going with the project. But of course, now that we had a bid and we got a bid back, we've got a lot better estimate. But sidewalk, I mean, we just did a bunch of sidewalk as part of the 10th Street project, and I'm not overly concerned about that on this because, I know a lot of people thought the concrete work would take a long time, but finally, once the gas company was out of our way and the concrete guys started working on 10th Street, that curb, gutter, sidewalk went down pretty quick, so. But you will get to make a few more decisions on this when and if it gets awarded.
And I just want to just be sure I understand about the reimbursement. And I'm sorry, but you said because it's TxDOT, you're not 100% sure?
No, I'm not part of it, the matching part of it is covered by federal development credits because we're in a poor county.
Okay.
We would normally have to make a 25% match.
Right.
But since we qualify for those federal transport credits, the federal government will currently make up our 25% match. So it is likely that our money will be coming from two sources, which means we might have to request it from two different places. So you'll just have two different timelines and two different processes. So likely you'll get 75% from the state and 25% from the federal government.
And maybe I'm just not I don't remember the grant, and maybe that's the reason is because I've only seen matching grants myself in any of them that I've.
Well, in a matching grant is
this one is not matching; it's 100%, and it also says reimbursement, and I don't remember seeing that, and I don't know why that freaks me out.
Well, a matching grant is still a reimbursement grant. We still pay the money up front.
Okay.
So in every grant we've ever had, we pay it up front and then we request.
That's what I guess I wasn't sure of. Okay.
Yeah. So on a matching grant, the difference is if we spent $100,000 and we put in for 100 and we submit that for payment, and then it's a 25/75, they only pay us 75%, or $75,000.
Okay. So we've always put the money up front. I understand this is a pretty high grant. I've not seen this amount of money in a grant either, and that's just where I'm concerned a little bit. But
yeah,
before I voted, I want to make sure that this is going to be done in stages.
Yeah,
that there's not going to have to be any kind of.
We make monthly pay requests based on the money that we paid, so that likely will be out 2 months worth of money because it's that we've got to spend the first month before we apply for it.
You say out, you just mean lag time between.
Yeah.
Going.
Yeah, we won't lose it, but but we'll make it up 2 months after the project is finished, and then some of that you withhold retainage and all of that in a contract too. So, but we have only, in my history, ever gotten one grant that was partially funded up front, and that was that first round of COVID support, as they gave us like $50,000 up front, and then you had to apply for the rest of it. But that's the only time it has ever not been a reimbursement grant.
Okay. And I probably should have known that, but this is the first time I've seen it worded that in.
And most of our grants have been federal grants or CDBG that are federally passed down. This is federal money, but it is a true TxDOT grant. So this is the first time that we've actually had a TxDOT grant.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brandon.
Yes, ma'am. Thank y'all.
If there's nothing else, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution R-09-25, supporting the City of Borger's application to the Texas Department of Transportation's 2025 Transportation Alternatives Set Aside, TA called for projects.
I'll second.
And all in favor? And it passes. And then item number
13.
13, consider and take appropriate action to approve an interlocal agreement for participation in a regional SPEX for forensic network local AFIS fingerprint database. Chief Davis.
Afternoon. So what I have for you here is a interlocal agreement between us. This is an ongoing agreement time now. The part of we've had this for a long time. Mr. What it does to be a part of the network. So it is a good tool. Else beneficial with it. Not many changes are highlighted.
Anyone have anything?
Just do fingerprints only? You get any other benefit besides fingerprints?
No, this is just for the other,
Without this, you have to mail your fingerprint cards and everything down to Austin to the state fingerprint lab and get them to do it. It's a computer terminal and a scanner that allows you to scan in. So like when you dust for fingerprints and you lift them and you put a card, then we get a special scanner that can scan that card, and then a trained fingerprint technician identifies all the little points and then submits it into the system, and will tell you if there's a match from any of the regional information, and then it will query the state system. So the bulk of this is a regional database that allows us to put stuff regionally, and you can search that regional database a lot quicker than it trying to match every fingerprint in the state database or the national database. And the goal of thinking is a lot of times, we might, and we do, Pampa criminals or Borger criminals or Amarillo criminals, they're not bound by geographic boundaries. It's not like, that burger, oh, there's the Pampa city limits, I can't go any farther. We wish it was, but
too is Pampa is a part of this, so when all their criminals come here, like, we can be sure to identify them.
Richer neighborhood. Did I say that loud?
But it does, and vice versa. So, if we have, and they'll stay out there. Once you put them in the system, even if there's not a match, it will stay out there. And anytime somebody gets a local arrest or new fingerprints get added in from a known person, it will continually go back.
If we had, let's say, a burglar here, weren't able to get a match. Well, then if that person years later is arrested, they're in trouble. We get them. It's just another tool to help us build. But it speeds that up of getting them collected.
Yeah.
Does it eventually tie to the state and the federal government and everything else, or is it just region?
It's all, so it's housed, the main part of the system for this region is housed, all of it.
It amends the state database. So like the local database doesn't keep the state records, it just keeps the local records, which allows you to search the local faster. But then it will send our queries into the state database, and we'll send our queries into the national database. But your turnaround time on querying, where the Panhandle local regional database might have 100,000 fingerprints, the state database probably has 50 million, and the national database over all that time probably has 1 billion. And so just to query all those just takes a lot of time. So sometimes a local hit can come back within 24 hours. I mean, you can query that database pretty quick. And most of the time, I would say most of the time that, especially property crimes, is a local person.
But it does look at, like, if there's crimes. I mean, you could catch a federal criminal by this. Oh, okay.
A lot of times what the delayed hits are, some other states arrested somebody. And so like he used to live here and now he lives someplace else. He's left the state, he or she's left the state, and now they get arrested for some offense in some other state for the first time, because here they had never been arrested, so their fingerprints weren't in our database or in the state database, but now they've been arrested and now you get a delayed hit.
Once you're arrested,
You just You just get response back locally, and then you get state, and then you get the other. Awesome.
But it is, in my
Anyone else have anything? Then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the interlocking agreement for SPEX Forensic Network participation and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the city of Borger.
Second.
And all in favor? And it passes. And item 14, consider and take appropriate action to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.